Hello, everyone. I'm Hella Chaz. Welcome to the stream, or the VOD if you're watching on tape delay or on YouTube. This is a presentation for the reflections on content patch number 5. Because there's about a day and a half remaining in the content patch 5 before we get content patch 6. So I am curious to see what's going to happen. But also at the same time, we're not going to be playing a lot of games. And the reason why is because we're very much likely to do something like the last time content patch came out, number 5, where we just, content patch comes out and we read the patch notes and then play for like 7 hours. So if that happens, then I'm probably not going to be playing too much right now, because I kind of want to be like saving my energy / attention for the newer patch that's going to happen. So if a stream or if a VOD doesn't drop between seeing this video and content patch 6 getting released, that's probably what's going on. It's like the part where I normally stream every day, but like right before content patch drops is normally where I consider like sort of taking a vacation from streaming. So, just a quick background. This is mostly geared towards players who are familiar with like Be a Landlord. I'm not going to go over everything in super granular detail. I'm going to do a decent amount. But if you haven't seen my fundamentals video, I definitely recommend watching it. And I'll be recurring some of those concepts in this video, sort of on the presumption that you're already familiar with the basic fundamentals and mechanics of Luck Be a Landlord. So this is something for me. What did I do on Content Patch 5? Well, I only got the world first 100%, which is floor 1 through 9 completed. Took me about 7 hours. I held the world record for 100%ing for a surprisingly long time. Somebody ended up doing a sub 4 hour run of 100%. I might try to beat that at some point. We'll see. It's definitely beatable. It's a lot less beatable than the 7 hour version that I posted. So we'll see how successful I am at that. But it'll be a fun challenge. In terms of floor 9 win percentage, I believe like over this patch, there's about 25 to 40%. I haven't been keeping super triple track because it's a little bit too low for me to care a lot. And then there was a couple of infinites thrown in for flavor. And so in terms of like the field, this is by far the most streamed floor 9 infinites and floor 9 wins. It's a lot closer if we look at like off-stream numbers, especially for Tetra Ica, who has a very high number of floor 9 wins. I think somewhere between 12 and 18, and I believe that they're playing tonight. So we'll see how that goes. They could be dangerous if they end up playing a lot more. But they don't stream as much, so I can definitely confidently claim that we have the most streamed floor 9 wins on this stream. Since I'm one of the few people that goes for floor 9 infinites, well, we get floor 9 infinites as a side bonus. Also, speaking of Tetra, my win rate doubled after playing co-op with it, and one of the things that happened was, you may have noticed, my stream has recently become a lot more like mathematical, procedural, doing calculations, and a lot of that is based off of the matches that I have played with Tetra, and thinking about the game in a way where making rent is a more predetermined outcome than crossing fingers and hoping things works out. Crossing fingers and hoping things works out works a lot better on floor 1 than it does on floor 9. So I attribute going from something like a 10% win rate to going to something like a 30% win rate to as a result of playing co-op with Tetra. So meanwhile, other top streamers have been looking at Floor 9 and have reached different conclusions than myself personally. I found Floor 9 to be tough, but beatable. And even though it's not a consistent thing like 90-95%, still something in the ballpark of a 30% win rate is definitely something where like streaming, like there's definitely a good amount of it where streaming losses does feel bad, and I don't upload all of those to YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, you've been wondering like, really, Hella Chaz has a 30% win rate? Well, yeah, actually, I don't necessarily upload my sessions where I go 1-3, 1-4 to YouTube. It just sort of feels bad. It's not like there's necessarily bad gameplay in those videos, even though there's plenty of that to go around for basically everybody in the world. It's not exactly the sort of thing where I'm like excited about putting it on YouTube, where it basically doesn't get deleted ever. Other streamers have taken an opposite approach and said, you know what, I would like to take a 90-95% win rate on Floor 1 and just play Floor 1. And when we look at Floor 9, we're just going to run away. Different strategies for different people on what types of gameplay they enjoy the most. This has created a sort of problem for me, trying to figure out how to win Floor 9, because it's just really hard to find wins on Floor 9. I've seen there are people who stream Floor 9, and there are people who win while streaming Floor 9. Generally, it's pretty few and far between. So it's a little bit hard to figure out how to play Floor 9 in the first place, which of course affects everyone's win rate. I've played Floor 9 enough that I feel like I have a general idea, at least how I'm trying to play it. I'm not saying that's the only way to play it, but that's sort of my thinking on how Floor 9 should be played. There's some weird Floor 9 dynamics that aren't really seen on Floor 1. There's the 650 hump, and I'm not going to go super detailed into what the 650 hump looks like, but there is a graph of it on the fundamentals video that I mentioned earlier. For whatever reason, the hardest rent payment to make on Floor 9 is payment 10 at 650. It's something that I'm really hoping is solved in a future patch, but it essentially means that the game is about 70 turns long. Things that are trying to pay off need to pay off by spin 70, and things that need to scale to endgame value need to scale to endgame value by spin 70. This is really big ask, and there's other problems with Floor 9 as well. Mathematically speaking, I have mentioned this in a video optimizing removal tokens. Generally, the optimal sort of number of symbols on the board is going up to 23, and then cutting to 18 to 19. And by the way, that's 18 to 19 including duds. So the issue here is that there's not enough removal tokens to plausibly go up to 23 and then cut to 18 to 19 without just doing a lot of really weird things to, like, for example, adding consumables and then consuming them later, or adding lockboxes and then using and then getting keys later. Taking out the extra 5 symbols gradually over the game is not a pleasant process, especially as better symbols are being iteratively added into the deck as a non-negotiable constant. Does make good builds look bad. Like, I watch other streams. I watch Quigley plus Beastmaster fail on payment 10, 650. Look, Quigley is a good item. And Beastmaster with Quigley is really good. But it just fell flat on its face. It missed 650 by 50 to 100 coins, and that's all, folks. And the reason why it misses is because of the duds. They're just existing to extract attacks and make good builds look less good, and great builds look kind of average. It's just a sort of situation that is created by the existence of the duds on the higher floors. And then for floor 9 specifically, one less reroll token reduces guaranteed rares on failing builds by about 50%. And it really is that big of a margin because there's only that many guaranteed rares on the build. Like, builds that are failing, the builds that aren't scaling into the end game, will fail around payment 375, payment 450. Now, if you can get to payment 375, payment 450, there is guaranteed rares available. One, right? Using reroll tokens allows for fishing for the guaranteed rares that will save the build. Usually there is like some sort of some sort of collection of rares that are better than just gives 3 omelets that will like at least allow the game to continue. But the fact that there are less reroll tokens available to deliberately fish for those rares makes it a lot harder to get that early value in order to continue playing, in order to continue having a chance in the game. Especially when guaranteed rares are supposed to be the like end game power engines that make the build go from good to great, and we've already established that good builds look bad. The reduction of the guaranteed rares compounds on the negative effects that are created by the duds. And all this contributes to not tremendously high win rates, especially when compared to floor 1, where the win rate where top players get win rates of 90% to 95%. Floor 9, even the best players at 50-60%. Nothing like that. So builds that work on floor 9, and this is basically from direct experience. Cole works on floor 9. Cole is like the only common build that like will work on floor 9, where it's just really, really good. I did a video on Cole. Cole is really good. Not enough said. Rarity. Rarity increases with suits usually, where 1.1 chance to see uncommons and rares, 1.2 chances to see uncommons and rares. With Lucky Cat, 1.3 chances to see uncommons and rares. Those rarity increases stack and cause a sort of gives 3, doubles adjacent symbols, those kinds of high rarity values to just sort of seep into the deck, as well as, the uncommon gives 2, gives 3 come in a little bit earlier. And so all of that stacks in a very like positive feedback cycle. Suits is one of those things where, normally there's about 1.5 of any given suit, 1.5 hearts, 1.5 clubs, 1.5 spades. That will appear on average every single game. But with rarity improvements, those numbers increase along with it, and it makes going suits go from this is all right, to, well, actually we have, 4 hearts that are giving on average 3 per spin. That all of a sudden becomes a lot more of a real build as opposed to, well, we have like 2 diamonds and a spade, and they give about 2 per spin on average. There's a very different conversation that we're having between having 4 plus suits of the same color versus a medley of 3 mixed suits, which would be a more average outcome without the rarity improvements. Early Geologist. is a win on floor 9. I include Diver and Mrs. Fruit with some support. The reason why Geologist is an early win is because of Oyster and Golem. Oyster creates pearls for Geologist to eat. It's basically 20% chance to create a Hustling Capsule. It's basically what Oyster reads. And then for Golem, it's essentially, in 5 spins create, 10 Hustling Capsules or something stupid like that. Except they're even better than that because the Geologist will smack them twice at a time. So it's those two symbols combined make the Geologist quite nutty in terms of scaling. Diver and Mrs. Fruit have both excellent scaling. Diver scales better with commons. Mrs. Fruit scales better with uncommons. With some sort of supporting cast. And we're talking like, let's say, 2 or 3 diamonds. That helps a lot. That goes a long way to making Diver and Mrs. Fruit be the remaining engine that takes the build over the finish line. Cultists are still not a joke. They're not as good as Cole, but they still cause wins. So we have to include cultists on this list. Also included here would be, ninjas with Cursed Katana. But we'll just put cultists. Cultists are still good. Getting 5 or 6 cultists early enough in the game is often enough to generate a win. But again, getting 5 or 6 cultists early on in the game is a very statistically unlikely outcome. So it's not as reliable as Cole in generating wins. That 2+ item rare synergy. Man, you gotta love that 2+ item rare synergy. Tetra was explaining on its stream how to win, and they said, well, you just get Rusty Gear, Dwarven Anvil, and Barrel of Dwarves, and you're good. And man, is that a hard argument to refute, because Rusty Gear, Dwarven Anvil, and Barrel of Dwarves is such a good synergy that getting it all in a row is like game winning. That's pretty good. And there's varieties of this, a wolf plus a moon plus clear skies. That's pretty good. Get some more wolves, get a Beastmaster, maybe even a second moon. Man, that's starting to feel like a real run-winning build for floor 9. But, it's not just the I picked, sometimes the two item rare synergy, like Quickly plus a Beastmaster, isn't good enough. So it actually has to be like a good 2+ item rare synergy, and not just Quickly is a really good item, and Beastmaster is a really good rare. It needs to be like Quickly plus 2 Beastmasters, and that's a winning run. Or, just like add 2 or 3 diamonds on the back end of the build. That always smooths things out, right? Just gotta put that Cole into the cycle. Cole plus like questionable execution of the rest of these concepts. The Cole helps a lot. It really does. And so we get to the commons tier list. Now I'm very excited because I generally don't produce these sorts of tier lists, but I did for this one. In my opinion, commons are the most important symbol to tier correctly because the early game compounds itself into the late game, and also commons are the most likely symbol to see in the game. So if commons are rated incorrectly, that misattribution of power compounds itself over time. And so it would be wildly inappropriate for the top tier to be anything other than Cole by itself. The Cole tier is Cole by itself. It's not even close. Cole is just so good. I'm just glowing when I think about Cole. I think about it turning into diamonds. I think about the diamonds giving +1 to all other diamonds on the board. I think about dames making dinging sounds and doubling the diamonds. I think of cleaning rag, making the diamonds shinier and giving them +1. Just everything feels good about picking coal. Except for picking it like more than halfway through the game. That's bad, don't do it. First turn coal, oh my goodness, so good. Second spin coal, so good, unless you also did first spin coal, in which case you'll lose the first payment. But generally speaking, early spins getting coal is so good. And it's just so much better than any other common symbol that I'm looking for. That it's just in its own tier. I know. You gotta have a drum roll to unveil the next tier. We have consistent scaling plus D3. Because D3 averages 2, that's nothing to snooze on. There's also these things that have consistent scaling that will eventually get better than D3 on a consistent basis. Everything else below this might have scaling potential, but it will not get consistently value above the D3 consistent scaling, which is 2 on average for the entire game. Cultists, I used to be really high on. The reason why cultists are roughly equivalently as good as crabs, even though cultists scale objectively faster and harder than crabs, is that their payoff profile is roughly the same profile as coal. So if we're going coal, picking cultists means that we need to get cultists fast, or else we won't be able to continue picking coal because we won't make rent before the coal starts paying off. So since picking cultists hurts our ability to pick coal, it means that cultists are less good. Crabs don't have this problem. Crabs just start giving 1 every single spin that they're on the board, and they just get better from there. That's just, really hard to complain about. It's not amazing, it's not cool, but it's just really good. It's super solid. Similarly with Shiny Pebble, it's only 10% more on commons, rares, and very rares. But that 10% goes a long way because it occurs every single spin that the Shiny Pebble is on the board. And that's going to be a lot of spins if the Shiny Pebble is being picked up early. Now, do you continue picking up Shiny Pebbles later and later on in the game? Probably not. But in terms of finding something early on as something to pick up and effectively be on the board until the end of the game, Shiny Pebble is really high up there because it's just generating value in the ability to get uncommons and rares and very rares more consistently. Next tier, a little bit larger. Inconsistent scaling plus consumables. Let's go through these. These are items that I really like. They're not as good as the 5 items above them, but they're really good. I'm very happy to pick all of these items. Let's start with B. B is a symbol that I've been a little bit lower on than I should. And the reason why is because I've not been respecting B's ability to scale. B is roughly like a suit in scaling, but as a comet. And so picking B's plus flowers gives a sort of similar scaling to this that is like suits, but unlike suits, it's in common form. It's a little bit worse, but it's still something where the first B gives about 1.25 every time it's on the board, 5 over 4. And then continuing to pick more flowers and more bees just causes the bees to scale up to 2 and sometimes 3. And so having the bee around makes the available pool of commons better. And that's something that I value very highly because we do need to pick commons to fill up our deck to generate value in the game. And B allows us to continue picking up bees and flowers. Oh, and by the way, at uncommon there's rain, and at rare there's sun. And beehive. All of which sort of help the bee become one of those, positive scalers. Now, does it scale well enough to be on the same tier as D3? No, it absolutely doesn't. But it's one of those symbols that will scale some amount over the game, and that is good. And worst case scenario, it's 5/4, which is a very fantastic worst case scenario for a symbol that does do scaling. Better than suits at the very minimum. Cats. Cats are a symbol that I also don't pick up enough, and the reason why I don't pick it up enough is because I don't respect their ability to scale with Lucky Cat. Lucky Cat is stupid good scaling, especially if it's acquired in the first within the first 3 rent payments or so. Lucky Cat means is 1.3, and so the problem with Lucky Cat is that the acquisition of Lucky Cat is more inconsistent. It's inconsistent enough that the stable 10% generated by the Shiny Pebble is stronger than the inconsistent 30% generated by Lucky Cat. And so there's also Pizza the Cat, Black Cat, Copycat. Those all items combine together so that even if there's no first 3 payment Lucky Cat, there's still outs in terms of giving Cat scaling towards the game. Now, I'm not saying similarly that it will scale to it will reliably scale to be as good as gives 2 like the D3 for the rest of the game, but it does have some scaling attached which needs to be respected. Let's go Ore. Ore, if hit by a miner or a mining pick, has a 50% chance to turn into a Shiny Pebble, which means roughly it's 50% of a Shiny Pebble. That's about it. 50% of a Shiny Pebble is still really good. It's not amazing, but it's really good, especially if there's more Shiny Pebbles available. Just the increased uncommon rarity improvements are very good. So the main purpose of getting the ore, the main value of getting ore, is to have ore potentially turn into a Shiny Pebble. And having it get hit by a miner for the extra 10 gold, that doesn't hurt. That's definitely a bonus. But what we're really looking for is for it to be hit by a miner and turn into a Shiny Pebble, or there's a slim chance that it will turn into something better, like a Sapphire, like a Voidstone, like a Ruby Emerald, or in an extremely rare case, Diamond. And this is sort of based off of expectations that X-Ray Machine is not a thing that exists right here. Obviously, with X-Ray Machine, ore becomes better than all of the items on the board. On the screen, I should say. Better than all the symbols on the screen, I should say. But in a vacuum, in the first 10, in the first 15 picks, ore has some upside, and it is definitely better picked earlier to allow for additional ores to be picked up, to allow for additional value to be generated by the miner. Magpie has Checkered Flag and Tax Evasion outs. Not much to be said there. Those are 2 items. This means that Magpie will most of the time scale to 2 or 3 eventually at some point into the game. So that has to be respected. Turtle gives 2 per spin with Checkered Flag. That's extremely good. But it requires checkered flag. But if we get checkered flag, then turtle becomes extremely good. And additionally, there's outs to remove turtle with diver, which are non-zero. They're not high, but they're non-zero. Beer, cheese, lockbox, key. These are all symbols that we can safely pick up, give them a certain amount of value, and assume that they're going to disappear at some point in the game. That's just really good because it allows us to do the sort of accordion effect on our deck to make it swell up to 23 symbols and then shrink down to 18. That's sort of the ideal case. In reality, we're going to have it swell up to 23 and have it, shrink down to anywhere from 20 to 25, just because we're adding more good symbols as the game continues, because that's, required. It trumps any sort of deck size considerations. Having a small deck that isn't worth anything is not actually that valuable. But having the beer and the cheese and the lockbox and the key allows us to open up a board where we have a lot of symbols that we're going to eventually cause to disappear, and allows us to sort of control for our deck. So even though we have a bunch of low value symbols early, we can make them disappear by consuming them. Speaking of consumers, hey, who are these? Who are these people? Yeah, actually, Candy gets thrown into these because Toddler is the worst consumer without Jack-o'-lantern. With Jack-o'-lantern, Toddler is fantastic, but before Jack-o'-lantern, Toddler is only about 5'4". And so, yes, grabbing Candy and doing some manipulation is useful, but the manipulation that we're doing is in the service of a Toddler, which is going to average about 1.25 per spin for the game, which is it's just not as good as we'd like it to be. With Jack-o'-lantern, this is the math dramatically changes, and Toddler is amazing. But without Jack-o'-lantern, I am more hesitant to pick up Toddler than the other consumers. That's why Candy is rated slightly lower. In addition, Dwarf gives 10 when drinking beer. Cheese gives Mouse 15 when Mouse eats cheese. However, Toddler just gives 6 when eating candy. That's just not as good as 10 for beer, 15 for cheese, and 15 for lockbox. It's just not as good. It's just a sad situation that Toddler isn't as good without Jack-o'-lantern. But once Jack-o'-lantern drops, then Toddler becomes a monster. So that's there's a balance to be made there. Other than Toddler, which I rate slightly lower, other than the fact that Jack-o'-lantern exists and then Toddler becomes great, all of the consumers are rate relatively equal to each other. Owl and Crow have doublers, and they have tax evasion, checkered flag. They're still roughly about 4-3 on the regular. And the purpose of the miner is to hit that ore and turn it into shiny pebbles, or better. But I don't necessarily want to be picking up miner anticipating getting the ore. I think I'd prefer to, get the ore and then pick up the miner. But I think there's some argument that I'm misplacing miner here. Because of the fact that ore can turn into shiny pebbles, and that's value. I love the title of this tier. What are the odds? Rabbit is only really good with Nori the Rabbit or an early shedding season, much like Cat, except we don't have a starting Cat, so Rabbit just is less good. Shedding Season is a less good Lucky Cat, and because Shedding Season is a less good Lucky Cat, Rabbit is a less good cat. Flower is a symbol where I might be rating Flower a little bit too low. picking up flower early means that picking up B becomes, B becomes a 1.5 symbol if flower is picked up. So maybe flower is rated a little bit too low here. But what are the odds that a B rain sun build is going to get going, right? What are the odds? The implication here is because of the tier, it's pretty low. Earn. What are the odds that a Gravedigger is going to show up? About 30 to 50%. By the way, what are the odds that a thief is going to show up for a banana peel? What is it? About 100, about 80% over the entire game. Except that there's the 650 hump, so it's closer to 60 to 70% over the entire game. And because it's closer to 60 to 70% over the entire game, banana peel becomes a little less good. Because what are the odds, right? Goldfish. What are the odds that fishbowl or diver show up? Before the game ends, 50 to 60%. What are the odds that a egg carton or omelet are going to show up in time to translate this egg into a contributing member of society and not just have it be a chicken that dumps 2 value chickens all over the place and clutters the board with mediocre garbage and causes us to wheeze out on payment 450, payment 575. It's about 30 to 40%. Not anything that I want to write home about. Same goes for the dog with Quigley. The seed could turn into a flower, or it could just turn into, a banana. There's the banana next time. Banana with monkey equals banana peel. It's a very elaborate banana peel. What are the odds that we get a monkey and we get a thief? Right? What are the odds? Again, similar to the odds that we get a thief, but it's just a more elaborate setup. We have Snail. Snail's a 5/4. It's actually one of those. It's like actually one of those benchmarks for all of the other symbols here. The only thing that really removes that improves Snail is Checker Flag, or preferably Diver to just remove the Snail off the board. So being a 5/4 that doesn't scale, with the exception of like the Diver to just remove it, puts it into the category of what are the odds, because we really just want to get a Diver to remove the Snail rather than get anything to improve the Snail specifically. And then the final category, skip. What are these symbols doing in my pick board? And the symbols that are here are to be skipped. I hope at least one person listening gets that reference. Otherwise, it's probably really sad. But that's all right. We can embarrass ourselves on a regular basis by streaming every single day at Twitch TV/HellaChaz and uploading on YouTube at youtube.com/HellaChaz. Cherry, blah. Oyster produces pearls. Oh wait, that's that other symbol right next to oyster. Again, not a good symbol. Goose is like 5/4, but it needs to get removed, and there's no Diver to save it. Nothing eats geese. Nothing removes geese other than removal tokens, which we don't have on floor 9. Bounty Hunter, cool mustache, uncool payoffs. How often are we going to get thieves? Maybe once per game. It's not going to justify picking up a Bounty Hunter so that we can get consistent thief removal. Oh, and coin. What are the odds that we get triple coin or coin on a string? I actually haven't done the math, but I think it's less than 10%. That's a very hard skip to me. And hey, let's get to noteworthy uncommons and rares. So there's some. I didn't go with the full uncommon tier list or the full rare tier list. Look, uncommons are better than commons and rares are better than uncommons. Just generally speaking, there are some uncommons that are more better than other uncommons for reasons that we'll discuss. Bronze Arrow scales better than any other uncommon. Is that true? Getting enough suits can scale better than uncommon than Bronze Arrow. Like having 5 hearts is better than having 5 bronze arrows. No, I'll take 5 bronze arrows over 5 hearts, assuming that the board is averaging 3 or 4 per spin. Without the bronze arrows, the bronze arrows are going to show up at average 4 on a board with 3s. They're going to average 5 on a board with 4s. And by the way, they scale to infinite, so that's pretty cool, right? Gotta love that attribute. Capsules, all of them, they're all good. They all net somewhere between, I can't say that because item capsule and hustling capsule scale, and wealthy capsule and the tedium capsule just give flat gold bonuses. Removal capsule and reroll capsule also both scale. If there's not a pressing need to put symbols onto the board, capsules are pretty much an automatic pick. Hex of Destruction. Wow, Hex of Destruction is such an interesting symbol because it's the only symbol that goes from very bad to pretty darn good to very bad over the course of like 12 rank. The reason why it's very bad at the beginning of the game is because we're trying to pick up symbols to fill up our board to 23, and Hex of Destruction is actively working against pushing us up to 23. Now, once we get in the range of 23, then Hex of Destruction goes to work, baby, and starts removing those symbols that we don't really particularly want and we'd rather replace with uncommons and rares. And then once we've roughly finished doing all of the replacement into uncommons and rares, Hex of Destruction just becomes the worst piece of garbage ever because it starts, removing emeralds, it starts removing diamonds, it starts removing dames. It starts making us want to cry in a corner and wish that we'd removed Hex of Destruction earlier. So in the early mid game, I would say, when we get when we broach the third rent payment, when we're talking about like having 15 symbols, 20 symbols, picking up a Hex of Destruction is so good. And by the way, it returns 3 every spin, so that ain't anything to scoff at, especially for an uncommon. So Hex of Destruction, there's a curve to it. There's a matter of taste. Picking it up at around 15 symbols and removing it once symbols are averaging about 2.5 per spin. That's about, if you're getting around 40 to 50 coins per spin on average, it's time to be removing that Hex of Destruction. At that point, Hex of Destruction is just going to be hurting more than it's helping. But before then, Hex of Destruction is going to be helping more than it's hurting. And it can get rid of duds, it can get rid of pearls, it can get rid of cherries. These are things that we're very happy for that Hex of Destruction to get rid of, because we really don't have the removal tokens to spare to get rid of them. And even if it takes away a plum, a sapphire, even a coal that's 13 charges remaining to transform, those can be replaced at an early enough stage in the game. It's when we get to the later stages of the game where like the odds start working against Hex of Destruction, removing the things we want, and start favoring Hex of Destruction, removing things that we actually want to keep. Hex of Draining, it's a poor man's D5. It starts netting 3. Over the course of the game, it'll end up returning 2, and at the very end of the game, which by the way is payment 10, it'll start returning a little bit under sub 2. We're talking like 1.75. And so I'm not going to do I don't intend on doing a full hex video, but a shout out to Steve McCulloch, who is almost certainly watching this video right now. This is as close as I'm going to get for the time being for making a hex video. Hex of Draining starts at 3, which is really good for an uncommon, and goes down to a little bit under 2, which is still good for an uncommon. So Hex of Draining, in my estimation, is a poor man's D5. Hex of Tedium, very dangerous to pick up. The reason why it's dangerous to be picked up is because unless the plan is to win with cultists, then Hex of Tedium dramatically reduces the scaling that is occurring in the game. And the reason why is because coal is good to be picked up until it does not transform before the final payments, which is again, somewhere between payment 3 and 4 for the first coal to payment 5 and 6 for the later coals. After payment 6 or so, coal is no longer valuable as a common. Of course, virtually all of the other commons that are giving between 1 and 2 are unpickable. So the remaining options that we have for commons that we could be picking are cultists and to a lesser extent crabs. So the downside of Hex of Tedium is that it very actively works against us, with the solitary exception of hardcore cultists, which sort of presupposes not going coal, which means the situations where Hex of Tedium looks good is the sort of situations where I'm thinking we're in a whole heap of trouble. So Hex of Tedium is in many cases a give 3, lose the game sort of pickup. So in some cases, with 3 cultists or so, Hex of Tedium can be fine. It's just in a lot of situations that I've encountered, Hex of Tedium is a gives 3, lose the games kind of. All right, we are back. Sorry for those technical issues. Anyways, the moral of the story here is that these are the hexes that are worth considering, and everything else I just can't recommend in terms of hexes. The Russian doll, Matryoshka doll. Made a video on it. It's good to be picking up in the first 20 spins. After that, it declines in value. But in the first 20 spins, yeah, it's a great pickup. Ninja. Why is Ninja good? Number 1, Ninja and Mouse. Number 2, Curse Katana. Number 3, Ninja and Mouse plus Curse Katana. I think Ninja is one of those symbols that, 1, is good by itself for an uncommon because it gives 2. And 2 is a win condition with Curse Katana. So the opportunity to pick up an early Ninja is an opportunity to win the game with some nice item synergies. And that's definitely worth paying attention to. Rabbit Fluff, 20% increase to seeing uncommons, rares, and very rares. Enough said. Rain works with bees and flowers and gives 2 on top of that. Very nice. Suits works with improvements to rarities. Doesn't necessarily scale the hardest, but it does scale. And so if we can get, 4 hearts, 4 clubs, 2 clubs, 2 spades, these are the sort of suit combinations where we're very happy to see in a sort of endgame scenario where we're picking up uncommons which generally give 2, and we actually have uncommons that are giving 3. Throw in a joker or 2 into the mix, and we've got a winning build. Void Creature, Void Stone. they give 8 and then disappear. Who's going to be unhappy with that? And now we get to our rares. Bartender. Bartender produces drinks for the dwarves, but more importantly, Bartender gives 3 per spin. That's just good. That's just good. Can't be upset with an early Bartender. Beastmaster. Beastmaster doubles crabs. Beastmaster doubles cats. Beastmaster doubles birds. And there's turtles. It doubles turtles, doubles wolves. And so Beastmaster just doubles a lot of things that we care about. And also it doubles things that give 3, which is a big deal. Where if it's buffing common and uncommon symbols that give 3, that's where I'm starting to care, because that's something that we can consistently have in a sort of 9th floor situation. Beehive is 5% chance to give B, which if we're going bees is a very good common. It's a common that gives 2 potentially. It's a common that potentially gives more than that, and it has a 5% chance to generate honey. Oh, and by the way, Beehive gives 3 by itself, so it's a rare that gives 3 and has a chance to generate symbols that give 2 and symbols that give 3. So that is something that is quite strong in a B build. Now, in not a B build, Beehive is pickable early and then needs to get removed. So there is some sort of selection involved in choosing Beehive. There is some discretion in when to pick Beehive, when to remove Beehive. Overall, Beehive is pickable, and in some cases, Beehive is a sort of win condition of the build. Dame is how do we put this? Really, 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 really good. Why? Because Dame works with coal, which is already really good. So when we say, hey, let's just get 3 coal, that turns into diamonds, and then we get a Dame that then turns those diamonds, which are giving 7 per spin, into, on average, about one of them is giving 14 per spin. That means that our diamonds, we basically have 3 symbols that are giving on average 10 per spin. And the Dame gives 2 by herself, so that's nothing to scoff at. So Dame makes already great symbols better, and that's why Dame is here. Beehive makes good symbols, which are bees, better, and so that's pretty good. And Bartender makes dwarves better, in addition to giving 3. Beastmaster makes crabs, which are already good, better. You might see a theme there. Diver. Diver is a rare consumer that just gets +1 for turtles, for fish, for snails, for pearls, for oysters. And so there's a lot of common symbols that just go into the diver's maw and give the diver +1 for the rest of the game. And that's just a lot of value and a lot of scaling. Where an early diver with any amount of support is a good foundation for winning a floor 9 run. Joker. Joker makes suits better. And so if there's suits on the board, then Joker is amazing. If suits are not on the board, the Joker is trash. But if the suits are on the board, Joker's great. Moon. Sort of similar deal. If there's wolves on the board, Moon is great. If there's not wolves on the board, then Moon gives 3, right? The fallback on Moon is that it gives 3. If we see an early Moon, we can pick it up because it gives 3 per spin. But What we really like to see is wolves. Many wolves with Quigley, and then we see a moon, and then we put the moon on the board. The moon smacks those wolves with the little ding sound, and wolves give 9. Mrs. Fruit, it's like the Diver for uncommons, so actually slightly less good than the Diver. Mrs. Fruit does eat the cherry, much like the Diver eats the pearl. So Mrs. Fruit is generally eats the cherry and gives 3 for the rest of the game, except then we can add some uncommon symbols like plums, like peaches, that we've picked up in the early game into Mrs. Fruit's maw. This is very good in terms of giving us the accordion effect that I keep talking about, starting at 23. We start from 0 and then go to 23, but we want to be going from 0 to 23 back down to 18. Mrs. Fruit is helping us do that. And so even though Mrs. Fruit is not insane as the Diver or as insane as the Archaeologist, Mrs. Fruit is still doing a lot of work here. Did we not put Geologist on this list? What an embarrassing omission, right? We actually forgot Geologist on this list. I'm just realizing. Alright, look. Geologist is good. Pick it up whenever you have the opportunity. QED. Silver Arrow. Silver Arrow is really good. Pick it up whenever you have the opportunity. QED. I'm not going to explain the math. It's just Silver Arrow is amazing. Sun. Sun is roughly +1 to flowers, bees, and rain. That's roughly how you should read Sun. In terms of the 5x multiplier to flowers, it's just so insanely good. And by the way, if you have, like, for example, 5 bees and 5 flowers, then Sun does considerably more than just +1. You have to imagine that, when the bee and the flower are giving about 11 put together, when the sun is next to the flower, that becomes some serious bee money right there. And the sun's going to be doing that roughly every single spin the sun's on the board. If there's, like, for example, 5 bees and 5 flowers, and in fact the sun's going to do more than that. So that sun is sort of that extra scaling oomph for those bee builds, where suits scale better, but the sun is better than the Joker. So there is that sort of consideration to be made if we're saying, well, is suits better or worse than flowers? The answer is, well, suits are better than flowers, but sun is better than Joker. So if you had the opportunity to pick up a sun, which again is less likely on floor 9 because of the reduced real capsules, flowers would be better than suits. But because of the changes to how the reduction in reroll capsules for floor 9, it ends up being that suits are just a little bit more consistent. But, not by that much. Because, bees, rains, flowers, still very good. And especially your sun, they become even better. That's all for me. We've managed to reach just about the hour mark. Which is by and far away my longest sort of analysis video, my sort of non-gameplay videos. And that's really just because we've broken down more or less every single meaningful symbol in the game. There's symbols that are, Emerald gives 3. Okay, that's +1 with Polishing Rag. And oh, by the way, we want dames, so emeralds are mega money for all my dames. So there's something to that analysis, but we didn't go over that. But hitting the hour mark, definitely a big plus for us. Yep. That's all, folks. By the way, Isaac, if you do have any questions, happy to field them. This can be open QA on all topics. Luck be a landlord. And in the meanwhile, on the screen, these are all my. You can find me on Twitch there, YouTube there, Discord there, and also much love to all my viewers, most of whom watch on bots, either on Twitch or on YouTube. So, when will croissants be added? Oh wow. Let's see. Croissants, give 3 are doubled by chef. Right? Importance questions only. If they added, if seeds could, turn into grain, and then there's there's a common baker, and baker, turns adjacent wheat into croissants, right? And or maybe chefs could turn adjacent wheat into croissants. That'd be pretty reasonable, right? Or maybe instead of frying pan, there's a bakery, and so if there's an adjacent egg and adjacent wheat, then that gets turned into croissant. Then there could be something there. Now you have my floor 9 brain thinking, and unless croissants are going to be giving 4, then I'm not going to be that interested in croissants, because they're going to be very similar to that sort of egg tier, where the ultimate outcome of egg is giving 3 in the form of the omelet, which is generically speaking not good enough to cause floor 9 runs to win. Now, if we're talking about gives 4, then we've actually got something going. I wouldn't. Come to think of it, I would be very on board with, for example, omelets giving 4. Omelets need some love. They're very difficult to make via the frying pan. And the reward of giving 3 is just, it's all right. It's all right even for floor 1, right? If floor 1, going eggs, frying pan is real out, because you can just have cheese flowing around on the board, and then frying chickens start laying eggs, and the eggs start hitting the cheese, and they turn into omelets, and hey, look, money. But that sort of running around like a headless chicken on floor 1 doesn't work so well on floor 9, unfortunately. They would give 4 if they were chocolate croissants for sure. Okay. Now that's some hard-hitting questions of when can we get chocolate croissants in the game. And I gotta admit, I wasn't that hungry starting the stream, but thinking about chocolate croissants is making me hungry. Like, my mouth is salivating. Just, it's drooling. Like, I'm glad that I'm not on camera, because like I'm worried if you just like did a zoom in on my tongue, it would just be glistening. Yeah, the chocolate croissants is for sure gives 4. Maybe we could just have better omelets, and that would be a gives 4. Either way, we still have room for questions, serious or no. Cool. I think we'll wrap up this video. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to bounce the stream and then switch to swap the title and then switch to a little bit of gameplay. But we're not going to be most of the times that we're doing gameplay, we're just going to be focused on playing games in order to like get a win for the stream. We might just play games for the fun of it. So, if you're watching live on Twitch, stay tuned. We're just going to bounce the stream. Otherwise, if you're watching on video, then I'll very much appreciate all the viewers that I get. So thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time then.